In the evolution of cities, we've come a long ways very fast.
We're 20, 30 minutes away from anywhere you want to be in LA County.
I've worked with a number of prominent cities, and I can assure you that we have the best mayor and city council and executive team in the country.
We're here with Hall of Fame receiver Andre Reed. Great to have you, Andre.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Good to be seen.
I want to talk a little bit about Buffalo now and the excitement in Buffalo. Obviously, the team didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, the excitement surrounding that team. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, my thoughts are great. I think this team is definitely on the right track, and it all started 5 years ago with Sean McDermott getting hired and then hiring a really good GM that's been around. Those two guys have been around each other for a long time. We were in Carolina. And then they got the quarterback that they thought would be where he is right now. And, you know, Josh is not only a great person. I had a chance to meet him draft day there in Dallas when he got drafted, but he's just an outstanding person. And in this league, at the quarterback position, it's all predicated on how your quarterback plays to a certain point. You got to have defense, but the quarterback is the guy everybody looks to. If something's wrong, they look to him. And I think the Bills hit a home run with him. He's had a great year this year. He had a great year last year. He really took a big step in his development. And that's not only a lot of credit to him, but it's a lot of credit to, you know, what the offense is doing there to help him. And then bringing in Stephon Diggs. Devin Singletary's had a pretty good year. I know the running game has been kind of lacking luster over the past couple years, but defensively, they're number one in the league in every category this year. They interceptions, yards per game, everything this year. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde made the Pro Bowl, but they actually didn't make the Pro Bowl, but they were all pros. I don't know how you do that, but they showed that that's what their focus was in the offseason with the number one defense, and now they're starting to gel together. I think this team's going to be there for a long time, so looking forward to next year.
Was it a surprise with Josh Allen? There were questions coming in, played at Wyoming, was a 56% passer in college, and that doesn't get it done in the NFL.
Yeah.
Are you at all surprised at the success?
Not at all, because look at Aaron Rodgers and Peyton Manning when those guys came in. They're Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I mean, Peyton Manning won one game his first year. Troy Aikman won one game. So you got to go through your growing pains just like anything. I mean, and even in, you know, what you do, it's going to take you a minute to get comfortable and then know your surroundings, and then you kind of flow. So I wasn't surprised, but again, it's what he's done to make himself better with the guys around him and gelling together that way. You could be the greatest quarterback in the world if you don't have the guys to throw it to. Or you can have the greatest receivers in the world, but if the quarterback can't get it to you, then we have problems.
You mentioned the Hall of Fame. You're going to a Hall of Fame luncheon, the annual Hall of Fame luncheon today. What was that moment like? We're coming the night after. We've seen a lot of guys get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What was the moment like for you?
Well, your football life just flashes before your face in like 5 seconds. You know, all the way from a little Pop Warner tiny kid to the last time you played a down in the NFL. And all that in between, there were so many different people, so many pats on the back, so many kicks in the butt, so many you're this, you're that, you can't do this, I thought you were this. And then you get the lessons you learn from your parents. And my dad, unfortunately, passed away in '96 before I was inducted, but I felt he was looking down on me during my speech. I mean, they take bets on who's going to cry, and mostly you tear up because it's everybody that touched you in your life that said something to you that resonated with your career.
When did you feel that catch in your throat?
Towards the end, when I started talking about him a little bit, because my mom was sitting over to the left and there was an empty chair there, and I was trying not to.
Yeah. How do you steel yourself to that?
Yeah, and very emotional. And the one thing I think I tell people, and this was ironic, at the end of my speech, I thanked everybody at the hall, the fans, the media, all that stuff. And then I looked up in the sky and I said, Dad, I can still feel your hand on my shoulder. And then in the background, you hear a faint noise of a train going by. Seriously, it was really freaky, because my brother caught it and I didn't. And then when I watch it over, I just want to hear that. It's like, Dad, I said, Dad, thank you for what you've done for me, for bringing me into this world. And then I said a bunch of things, and then all you heard was a choo-choo, a train go by.
Wow.
And there was actually a train that went by at the right time.
Perfect
So
time.
I knew he was there when
Tell
I
me
heard
about your
that.
dad. What was his influence when you were growing up?
My dad was just a tough-minded guy, little short, stocky dude. You know, when my dad walked into a place, you're like, ooh, there's Calvin. That was his name, Calvin. They knew he was coming. And I think he just, values. He was all about values, of teaching me what's right, what's wrong, knowing that every time you do something, it's not going to be the way you want it to be, but you got to be persistent in life, and know that some doors are going to close, but you always got to be there and knock on the door. Because if you don't knock on the door, nobody's going to know you're there. You can peek here and there, but if you keep knocking, somebody sooner or later is going to hear that knock. And he taught me a lot about that, and never giving up, and realizing your surroundings and always being held accountable to yourself and what you do.
A lot of doors closed when you came out of high school. I mean, you look at some of the greatest players in NFL history, the Jackie Slaters, Jerry Rice, Andre Reed, come out of really small, almost obscure colleges. Kutztown.
Yeah. Well, I was a homebody kid. At 17 years old, I just wanted to be home. I wanted to be close to home. I wasn't a mama's boy. My mom probably thinks that, but I just loved being at home and loved that pull of what the home meant to me. And I wasn't recruited to a big school. I was a quarterback in high school. I wasn't recruited to go to a Penn State or a Notre Dame or nothing like that. So I just picked a nice school that I can get. They were all about education. I wanted education, and picked Kutztown because it was 35 minutes from my house, 40 minutes. So I can go home in a week on the weekend. So it was the best choice for me, obviously. I mean, I could have went anywhere and maybe been lost in the shuffle as far as sports went, but it was all about education to them, and that was the most important thing. I want to see a piece of paper. Everything else is just a formality, but a piece of paper really is kind of the meat and potatoes of you and what you've done.
Being a quarterback, even though it was at the high school level, did that help you as a receiver? Just understanding the concepts a little bit more and understanding everything that was going on in the field?
Yeah, I was that, little kid with the big afro. I put the helmet on and you couldn't hear anything because the hair would come out the sides of the holes, and that was me. And I think I was just that fast kid that did everything, and any position I could play to a certain point. So it really helped.
The best player, and you're the quarterback.
Yeah. And that's where I learned a lot of my running ability after the catch, is playing quarterback. We were a veer offense, so I handled the ball a lot, and wasn't the greatest passer, but I can make you miss, and we can get it done on the ground for sure.
Question you've been asked about forever, but tell me about the greatest comeback in NFL history, and the win over Houston.
Houston was defunct.
If you look and who was out of that game, Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly,
Cornelius.
Thurman Thomas.
Yeah.
Cornelius was not playing in that.
He didn't play in that
and
either.
So some of the best players of the bill, it came, not taking anything away from the guys who were on the field, but it really, the two players, it was almost like Andre Reed and Frank Reich.
That, every playoff year they play that game. For what reason? There's a lot of reasons, because it's a lesson being learned that regardless of what's going on and you're down and you don't think you can win, there's always a hope, and there's always, if you're all together and you all know if we put the effort in, anything can happen. And, as a kid, that's what my dad told me. He said, again, it's not going to all go your way. It's your persistence and perseverance it's going to get you over the top. The ones that quit early, those are the ones that are not going to be on the other side. So the ones that keep going, regardless of the outcome, those are the ones that are going to get things done. But yeah, that was a game of ages. And the Houston Oilers, and there's no such thing as the Houston Oilers no more. It's the Texans and the Titans now. So every time I see Warren Moon, we talk about that game. I have to.
He doesn't bring it up.
I just say, hey, Warren, what's up? Remember that comeback? Man, yeah, we don't want to hear that. But, you know, they dig me, too. You know, the 4 Super Bowl losses. Hey, Andre, you went to all these games, the Super Bowls, and you lost. I'm like, you were sitting there watching me, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But I wanted to ask about, you mentioned that being a metaphor for life.
For life, yeah.
What kind of letters did you get? What kind of fans reached out to you who might not have been football players, but they say, hey, I needed that in my life?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of thank you letters, and again, a lot of coaches have talked to me over the years. It's been 30-some years now since that game, and said, you know what, that game really taught my football team how to, not only how to play, but realize that if you're down, it's never over. And, you know, high school and college and Pop Warner, and that's a game that not only resonates in football folklore, but it is a teacher method. Because we all sometimes feel like we can't do what we're going to give up to a certain point. That just tells you that you can never give up at the highest level.
Was there a time in that game you thought, we're done?
No. I mean, being done where you're just like, I'm not even going to try. That's when you see a team that's done, you can tell because they're not giving the effort. We were giving the effort. And so there was nothing that, I don't think there was anything that any guy on that sideline thought that we were, we're going to lose this game. I mean, obviously, we were like, yeah, it's going to be a surmountable comeback, you know, but we're at home in front of our fans. Everybody else is watching it on TV. My mom and dad are watching. I'm like, I can't let them look at me and look like I'm giving up. So that resonated in the whole football team. And then the fans, you know, 80,000 fans going crazy, and it was over for Houston after a while. Yeah.
You played in the last Super Bowl played in Los Angeles.
LA, yeah.
That Rose Bowl game. Michael Irvin and Charles Haley snuck out of the locker room at halftime to watch the Michael Jackson halftime show.
And I was standing there with him.
Were you really?
Yeah.
You were out there?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that.
We were losing. It was, you know, it was a tight game, really.
Yeah.
At going into
You took
half.
an early lead. I mean,
Yeah.
Buffalo looked like it.
And I remember walking into the tunnel. As a matter of fact, I played golf over Brookside yesterday there at the scene of the crime. And I walked through there, and I just happened to glance at the corner of my eye, even though I was focused, you know, about the game. And Michael Jackson was standing there like, he looked like a mannequin. He just was standing there. And what I thought about it, I go, look at that dude is just like, he's ready to perform. Like, that's his stage.
Yeah.
He's not gonna fail. He's not gonna slip. He's not gonna do anything. And that's what the attitude we had to have coming back out. Like Michael Jackson, I was like, man, not only was I freaked out that was Michael Jackson, but like you said, Charles Haley and Michael Irvin were like, yo, that's Michael Jackson. I was like, yeah, that is Michael Jackson.
Wow.
No doubt about it. So I thought about that, and it was like, that really did something to me when I saw him standing there. Not only was Michael Jackson, but the way he was standing, he was like ready to go. Like you could tell, yeah.
Did you know that Steve Smith, the receiver, was one of the kids on the field running around?
During that time,
Yeah.
you know, I never asked Steve that. I've been on his podcast.
You got to ask him about
I'm going to
that.
say, yo, I probably tripped you, man. Stuck my foot out there, and you tripped over my foot.
So that was an iconic halftime show.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, it was the start of the Cowboys dynasty. But a difficult one for you guys to swallow. Everyone was, I bet.
I mean, as the years go on, one thing about it is people talk about it, but there's more positivity to it right now. They don't just say, you lost 4. Oh, I was watching the game and I bet on it. Okay, you can do that with a horse race too. But the more as the years have went in the last probably 15 years, 20 years, the more positive, because there's 7 Hall of Famers, there's a Hall of Fame coach, an owner, and a GM. We did something right. And we win 1, do we go to 3? Who knows? We win 1, do we win 3 more? I think if we win 1, we'd be a dynasty to a certain point, just like the Cowboys were at that time, and the 49ers and the Steelers of the 70s. But it just wasn't meant to be. And You know, I'm not going to go out and sit on the 405 and just wait for cars to go by and try to run across. That's just how it was. It was a lesson to be learned, and I was very proud to be on that team. There's a lot of guys that play in this league 10 years, never get to a playoff game, never see a Super Bowl except on TV or go to it.
Think it's going to be a long time before we see a team that wins 4 conference championships in a row?
Yeah, well, Kansas City maybe had a chance again this year. The Patriots had a chance a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Of course, I was rooting against them. I was like, yeah, I don't want the Chiefs to be here. But that's a record that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do, and nobody really talks about it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about this game and how you see this game unfolding. If you look at it, some of the greatest, in terms of receivers, this collection of receivers
It's pretty
might be one of the
solid.
best Super Bowls, might be the best Super Bowl when you think what Jamar Chase is doing and T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Cooper Kupp on the other side,
Odell.
and OBJ.
Yeah, that's a pretty good assessment. I mean, both of these teams offensively are very powerful. They can score a lot of points. And I always tell people when Super Bowls come around, it's how the player who has never been here before handles everything about the week. The football is going to take care of itself, but it's everything all from your family, getting hotel rooms to the tickets to that really plays a factor in some people's mind and psyche. It's all business, no doubt about it. That's what you're here for. But like you said, there's a lot of firepower on both sides. I mean, both quarterbacks, a young guy in Burrow, and he tore his knee up, and what he's done this year with Cincinnati has been tremendous. And then you got Stafford, who, you know, nobody thought he'd be here either. You know, coming from Detroit, all he had was Calvin Johnson. That was it. So he's got to cast the guys with Cooper Kupp and, you know, Offensive Player of the Year. OBJ comes over and really seems like he's happy where he is now. Unfortunately, Robert Woods went down. You know, that's half of Cooper Kupp's 145 catches, maybe. Maybe he catches 100 instead of 145. But you got to give credit. And then their defense with Aaron Donald and, you know, Von Miller still playing well. It's going to be an unsung guy that's going to make a play that's going to be a factor in the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on who that guy might be?
I have no idea. I mean, you know, you go to sports betting, they probably have that, you know, this guy's going to do this, give you a bet on this guy. When I came in the league, you know, came into the Super Bowls, there was no such thing as that.
Yeah.
You know, $125 was the highest for a ticket at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
So, but again, this is going to be a feel them out thing the first maybe quarter, and then once they settle down a little bit, it should be a pretty good game. I think Joe Burrow's just going to be smooth. You know, he's done it at LSU. I just don't see him, you know, tanking or going in a tank.
In terms of what they've accomplished to this point, not projecting out in the future, who do you think your Canton teammates are going to be out of this game?
Von Miller, Aaron Donald, of course, you know, three defensive players of the year. And this, I mean, Aaron Donald, all he wants right now is a Super Bowl ring to kind of be on top of all the MVPs. Von Miller's won a Super Bowl. I think he was an MVP too, right? Von Miller. And then on the other side, this is just a young kid. Their skill positions are 25 and under. All the receivers are like 23 years old. Joe Burrow's 23. I think Mixon's 24 or something like that. So that's a young football team. This is just going to bode well.
Whitworth? Would Whitworth be a consideration?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. I mean, he's been there the longest, for sure.
Playing at 40?
Yes. And I think he won
Walter Payton.
Walter Payton, Man of the Year. So this would be a icing on the cake for him, whether he retires or not. But it's seldom that you see a 40-year-old tackle out there playing in the NFL.
Yeah. Tell me what you're doing now. A lot of stuff with Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club kid. I was a club kid growing up, and I knew how important they were to my life. You know, keep me on solid ground. I mean, I was a kid. You know, I did stuff I shouldn't have done, but
Tell me some of those things.
I can't tell you what I did, but just kid stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. But they gave me the foundation I needed. I mean, sports gives you a foundation, but the Boys and Girls Club, what they stand for is all the stuff that I said earlier. You know, never giving up and always being accountable for your actions and knowing that somebody's watching. You do everything. Every move you make, somebody's watching. And they just laid the bricks for me to stand on. And I'm an ambassador, just like, you know, Denzel and Jennifer Lopez, all their club kids. They're all ambassadors for the Shaquille O'Neal. They're all ambassadors for the Boys and Girls Club. So I speak on behalf of, you know, my experience over 10 years as a club kid and what they've done for me in my life. And I go all across the country and speak at different clubs to help them raise money. I have a reading program because we all know reading is fundamental, it's important, it's all knowledge. And it's important. So, you know, that's been a very stable foundation in my life.
Who were the players that you looked up to as a kid and maybe met later?
I was
Maybe
a
they're on the
Steelers-
Hall
yeah.
of Fame.
I was a Steelers fan growing up.
Huh?
Yeah. I was a terrible towel guy. I mean, I don't think they had the terrible towels back then when I was little, but I wore 88 in college because Lynn Swann wore 88. And it's funny because when he got inducted to the Hall in 2001, I was in the audience because Marv was in the same class, Marv Levy. And I'm sitting there watching it, and Lynn Swann starts talking, and he mentions my name. And I just retired, so he mentions my name, and he said, this game is all about a guy named Andre Reed out there, which one day is gonna be up here at this podium. And I was like, is he talking to me? So my idol said that, and then when I got inducted 13 years later, every time I see Lynn, I tell him that story.
That's great.
Yeah, so that was outstanding. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, you and I took the Israel trip. the
Yeah,
Hall
that
of
was
Fame
good.
Israel
That was
trip
fun.
with me and Joe Green, John
Franco.
Stallworth, Franco. Was Franco on that trip? I don't think
Franco was there, yeah.
Boy, I embarrassed myself.
Did he take a lot of hits to the head too, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, thanks so much, Andre, for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you, thank
It's great
you.
talking to you.
It's awesome, man. That Israel trip was kind of the icing on the cake of a great career and all the blessings that I got in life. But you know what? In life, when you're being blessed, you got to give those blessings back. So, to much is given, much is expected.
You're doing it.
Yep.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.